Georgia Tech's transfer portal edition at the quarterback position is more than just his last name.
You are Locked On Georgia Tech, your daily podcast on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Georgia Tech. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb Johnson. I wasn't smart enough to get into Georgia Tech, but I'm plenty smart enough to talk Georgia Tech sports. Taking this daily journey with me, covering the Yellow Jackets, is my co-host, Jarvis Davis, who's been covering Atlanta sports for the last 15 years. We want to start up by saying thank you for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and wherever you go to download them, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Today on the show, we'll get into what patch do you want? Did Jamal help his draft stock? But first, Jarvis, we've spent some time over the last week or so getting into clearly what was a big name for Georgia Tech to get in the transfer portal. No, I'm not talking Justice Haynes, who's obviously a big name on his own, the running back position coming out of the University of Michigan, but someone who on the initial thought felt like maybe more of a name recognition thing than a talent piece. But now I'm starting to wonder if Alberto Mendoza, taken from Indiana, is a potential upgrade to the position, Jarvis, especially for those when we start comparing apples to apples and we look at the guy who just went out the door. I mean, is it crazy to think that Alberto Mendoza is an upgrade from Aaron Philo?
I won't say he's an upgrade, but I will say he will be familiar, because when you look at the throwing and running combination, right? I'm not saying he's on the level as a Haynes King, but it will look familiar. I feel like you can run quite a few things that you did last year, because we understood that Aaron Philo wasn't going to be able to do what Haynes King did running the football, right? He can move, but he's not an athletic quarterback. I don't look at Aaron Philo and say that, hey, he can, run around a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but Alberto Mendoza is that, like, because he played the wide receiver position before he made the transition to quarterback when he was in high school. So I look at that athletic ability, being able to throw the football. Arm strength is not necessarily the best, which is kind of falls into the same category as Haynes King. So I'm not necessarily ready to say he would be an upgrade, but he would definitely be familiar. And to me, when you think about marrying what George Gossett wants to do and trying to bring some continuity from what you had last year and Chris Winkie, him carrying over some certain things and trying to make sure that you maintain that identity that Tech want to have offensively and running the football, I think that's a good jumping off point for Alberto Mendoza and Tech going forward.
I look at it from this perspective, Jarvis, which is that there's no denying the arm talent that Aaron Philo has. Sure. And that was obviously a big reason why Georgia Tech fans were excited with him potentially being the starting quarterback when that was thought to be the idea. Clearly, what he was able to do at Prince Avenue and blowing out Trevor Lawrence's, Georgia high school record and the 4,500 yards a season, like all that sort of stuff. It was really impressive. I have just wondered, though, because ultimately when Aaron Philo came out of high school, he was still just a 3-star prospect.
Yep.
Alberto Mendoza, 3-star prospect coming out of high school. Not to say that just, putting the two side by side, even though they do stand at the same height. And I think Aaron Philo has Alberto Mendoza, but like, I don't know, 8-10 pounds, something like that. So similar style, and like stature and all those sorts of things. But we know the arm talent that Aaron Philo has. I'm just starting to wonder if Alberto Mendoza is not a better fit currently for what Georgia Tech is about to throw out on offense in 2026, simply because of what you mentioned there in the fact that the ability to move around in the pocket. And no, is that something that Alberto did a ton at Indiana? Well, no, because like when he was coming into games, he was most likely handing the ball off. I think it was the Kennesaw State game was really kind of the one rare opportunity he got to run kind of a full offense, and he got some other opportunities, Indiana State and on along throughout the season. But for the most part, it was, hey, we are running clock. When Kirk Cignetti talks about he was criticized for running up the score, so he didn't want to do a whole lot of that, and so we didn't get to see him use his wheels as much in that facet. But it is certainly a skill set that he has. The thing that I point to, and it's something that must be in like the Mendoza bloodline, is accuracy. The conversations that were had about Alberto Mendoza by his older brother, but what brother isn't going to be critical of his sibling when he gets the opportunity and kind of mess with him and talk about, well, I've been better. But Fernando Mendoza had a couple of quotes through the early parts of the season where he was talking about, hey, in practice, like, my brother's been showing me up. Kirk Cignetti goes, Alberto Mendoza has the ability to put the ball where it has to be. So that accuracy ability and that ability to move in the pocket. And let's be honest, Jarvis, with an offensive line that is losing some key pieces, that is maybe not going to be perfect at the start of the season, is going to have to grow into finding their footing along the way. I just wonder if maybe saying Mendoza is an upgrade from Philo is going way too far, and starting to go into that rose.
Depending on what your preference is, you know, like some people like top heavy, some people like bottom heavy. You know what I mean? So, Caleb, don't look at me like that.
Hey, look, Mom, if you're listening, I didn't say it. That was Jarvis. Okay,
I'm just saying people have preferences.
You're right.
That's why I say. That's why I say.
Yep.
Mendoza could be an excellent fit for what Tech is trying to do. Like you have Buster Faulkner walk out of the door, a guy who loves to run the quarterback. He can depend on the quarterback to carry that rock. And I'm not saying I don't want to see Alberto Mendoza carrying the ball 20 times a game. No. We saw that at least three times last year, right? With Haynes King. I don't want to see that. You know what I mean? But when you talking about having an advantage every Saturday with a guy who could run the football at the quarterback spot, that because athletic quarterbacks dictate coverage sometimes, right? Like if you play man coverage and you mess around and turn around and take off running, guess what he can do? You can't tackle him when you can't see him. That is just that simple. I know it sounds simple, but that's what it is. Like, and you can be able to you can put a defense in a really bad situation and essentially saying that, hey, man, you're going to have to play zone coverage most of the game because anytime you go to man, I'm going to take off running and get this first down. I'm going to keep moving these chains. We're going to have that time. We're going to control time of possession. Our defense is going to be rested. So, like, having that athletic quarterback, a guy who can run the football, and, he can sling it a little bit too, and he's accurate. Yeah, those are some of the things that you can say that, he's not Aaron Philo as far as being able to throw the ball all over the yard and make every throw, but man, he got a lot of other things that he can do. And like I said, if you prefer that, I like to have a whole bunch of options. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to what my quarterback can do, and if he has a lot of options, and I can throw multiple things at an opposing defense, you give yourself the best chance to win.
when you started to say I like to have, I thought you were going to go into some other characteristics that you're interested in. But
No. I'm not gonna dig. I'm not gonna dig. I just like to go surface level when it comes to those type of things. I just like to make my point and keep it moving, Caleb. I'm not trying to get in trouble.
All right. Hey, we won't focus on it. But
Yeah.
look, I think there is, to some aspect, like it's no secret that Indiana went and brought in Josh Hoover, transferring from TCU, and so like Alberta wasn't going to have the opportunity to start. But there was a moment in this past season where, like, just because he is the younger brother doesn't necessarily mean he is insignificant and riding the like this isn't Thanasis Antetokounmpo to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think, it's one of those like these are a couple of talented brothers, and hey, maybe Alberto isn't competing for a Heisman next year, but that doesn't mean that the talent level isn't there and isn't something that could benefit Georgia Tech. And so I feel like sometimes when the conversation gets going, fans can get a bit of a woe is me and a what could have been. But honestly, I think for Georgia Tech to end up out of this, still very much a quarterback competition heading into the spring. But you start to look at what Alberto Mendoza was able to do with his limited playing time at Indiana. And I've just started to look at, too, how people talked about him when he was on campus. And you start to get a better picture of the potential. And don't we all love to live off the potential of what a player can be? And so I definitely think it gives you a level of excitement for what we can look at in 2026.
Real quick, though.
Uh-huh.
FanDuel has odds on Alberto Mendoza winning the Heisman. Plus 8,000 right now. Plus 8,000.
Is what?
Plus 8,000 right now.
I would think if you are a Yellow Jacket fan and you're
into that
couple bucks,
you know what I'm saying?
Laying around,
literally a couple bucks, you
could pay out very well.
Pay out very well. So there you go.
All right, that's something good to keep an eye on. Look, I think you go from the potential of what a player can be to the reality of what a player was at Georgia Tech. And that's a guy like Jamal Haynes. He was able to show off his talent this past weekend. Did Jamal Haynes help his draft stock? It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you get right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where the prediction turns into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Georgia Tech with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedongeorgiatech.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Jarvis, we had the American Bowl over the weekend, a new opportunity for talented college players to get an opportunity to showcase in front of, the world, NFL scouts, all those sorts of things, because it's funny, as you get ready to go down for the Senior Bowl, and, you got the East-West Shrine Bowl going on. There's a lot. It feels like there's a lot of opportunities for these college players, especially these seniors going on to the next level, to show off their talent. But it feels like those rosters are pretty thin. And so this new opportunity, the American Bowl created by Scott Phillips Jr., gave some of these college athletes an opportunity to shine. And it seems like Jamal Haynes was one of those guys able to do so. What do you kind of see in his potential draft stock or just NFL future based on what we were able to see out of him in the American Bowl?
I see a super productive guy. You're talking about a guy that finished in the top 10 in rushing in the school's history. He was 100 yards away from Joe Burns. How about that name? How about that for
Right.
Never heard that name in quite some time. So when you talk about a guy that has that type of production, obviously he's going to get a look at the next level. And the first thing that comes to mind when I look at him is he's going to have to be one of those hybrid third down type of guys. I don't see him being a every down guy, starting running back, but guys like that, they can make a lot of money in NFL being a third down guy. And also, what's your special teams value? I think he catching punts, kickoff returns. That's a guy like Rashid Shaheed comes to mind, right? They were able to. He was able to. The Seahawks traded for him. They got him from the Saints for a bag of peanuts, and he's been doing wonders for them ever since. So I think that's kind of where I see Jamal Haynes kind of projecting to the NFL, like a super special teams guy, obviously, and then being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. That's going to be something that a lot of teams can look at and say, hey, yep, we can bring this guy in for sure.
I think, something we talked about recently when it comes to the conference as a whole, and when you're talking about the conference, it puts that in people's minds and it causes them to think about them more and hold them in higher regard. Well, hey, guess what? When you're playing in a postseason game that is on the NFL Network that NFL scouts are a part of, and you win MVP for your team, as Jamal Haynes did with the Guardians. Now, granted, Jarvis, is kind of a weird game when it came down to it. 7-6 was the final score that the Warhawks beat the Guardians. Now, Jamal Haynes was a member of the Guardians, but for him to win MVP, and you just kind of, whether it was Twitter or Instagram or whatever, you saw highlight after highlight of his shiftiness being shown on display. You mentioned special teams, and that was my exact thought that I went to of what Jamal could be able to do on special teams for just an NFL organization looking for, hey, call the Falcons. You're looking for a guy who is shifty, who can break tackles, who can, has maybe not insane speed, but certainly can break away from guys. And I think just his cuts are really precise. And I think, honestly, Jarvis, the further we get away from what had kind of been an injury-riddled couple of seasons for Jamal Haynes, like he was able to put up the kind of numbers that he did over this past year and the year before while dealing with injuries and playing through all of that stuff. So NFL scouts can also see that as an element, as well as the physical toughness that he's able to have. Just having that breakout season in 2023 where he rushes for 1,000 yards, I think kind of speaks for itself as to what a healthy Jamal Haynes looks like. But the big thing for me with this American Bowl game was winning MVP and having a lot of people talking about him is going to put him in the forefront of these decision makers' minds, and I think likely lead to him, seeing his name called later in April.
And that's what it's all about, because if I'm Brent Key, I'm just smiling because the more guys that you can get into these all-star games and they do well against other competition, because however you feel about the ACC and the level of competition and all that crap, that's not going to matter now because guys are playing all over the doggone place. So, it's just a matter of wherever you land, that's what it is. And I think that for Jamal to go and do what he did, that's a good look for Brent Key, because he's recruiting NFL level talent and they're coming there and they're being coached to the point where they're being invited to these games. So a big selling point for that team up 316 was, man, all you got to do is wait in line and you're going to go to the league. But now he can come out and say, hey, man, you got to wait. You come in, you're going to get coached up, and you're going to get an opportunity to play on the next level. So all of those things matter to a lot of these young men coming out of high school nowadays. The money matters too. True.
Sure.
And Tech got some of that too. So obviously, when you are sending these guys out into the world, not only these guys get these degrees and they can have jobs for the rest of their lives and go and have long careers, they're also doing what a very, very small percentage of people are able to do, and that is going to get an opportunity to go into the NFL, and that matters a lot.
You mentioned money that Georgia Tech has. Well, there's the potential that there could be more money heading to the Flats in a new form of revenue. What kind of patch do you guys want for Georgia Tech in 2026? This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Look, we were just talking about Jamal Haynes, who wins the MVP for the Guardians in the American Bowl. He had 12 carries for 50 yards. That's the kind of guy who, look, this is a bowl game where they're trying to give a lot of touches to a lot of different guys, and Jamal Haynes was able to shine. I mean, he ends his career at Georgia Tech with over 2,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, and that 2023 season that I mentioned where he had 1,000 yards rushing and really kind of just shined in a big way at the Flats and showing his abilities for Georgia Tech and being one of those guys who is able to stand out amongst the rest. These kind of moments remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar, and it's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit mentality. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Jarvis, the NCAA, while they're busy with a lot of things right now, including, a topic that we spoke on just the other day, Darian Mensah, and his ability to potentially go to Miami or potentially not. And if you didn't check out our previous episode from last week where we talked about how that whole mess with Duke could actually benefit Georgia Tech, go back, take a listen to it because it's well worth your time. But what has happened since that is the NCAA has approved commercial jersey patches where Division I teams can place up to 2 patches of no more than 4 square inches on uniforms for regular season games. I'm curious, Jarvis, do you like this whole idea, and how do you see Georgia Tech potentially benefiting from it all?
Oh man, it's an opportunity to get more money in the bank. Like whatever you can add to the pot, it's gonna help benefit you from a recruiter standpoint, and we all that know that matters, right? We talked about the foundation of having a good coaching staff, guys that's going to get better once they get here. We know that, we've seen that, right? We understand that by all of these guys that are playing in all-star games. We talked about Jamal Haynes, Clay Powell-Lee, you have Haynes King, you have Amari Harvey, Eric Rivers. All these guys are playing in these games and starting to have some success. So, now you're going to be able to get more players like that. So anything that can help that manner, and it's not necessarily going to have an effect on the game. I know people like, oh my gosh, it's a whole commercial. Man, you ain't paying attention to that doggone patch. So yeah, I think that's how it's going to help Georgia Tech in the short term and the long term as well.
So here's the thing, Jarvis. I am a guy who, and I definitely don't show it on this podcast, but I enjoy my fair share of fashion things, and I have my particular taste of what I like, what I don't like. And, the NBA did this a few years back where they started adding patches to jerseys. I don't like it. I think it looks
Oh,
ugly. It's just
okay.
not for me. However, this is a little bit different because it's similar, Jarvis, that I see to players in the NBA who sign shoe deals with brands that you wouldn't necessarily think of. You know, your Antas, your hey, for a lot of people, your Under Armours, you know, brands that aren't always what is seen as like what's cool and in style and all those sorts of things. You
Right.
know what is very, very cool and in style is all the zeros that come after that first number that those businesses write to you, because Under Armour is going to be on Georgia Tech's jerseys coming up this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are going to be a lot of different elements that bring revenue to the school. And so I think for fans, you might get on your high horse and have this moment of, all right, well, is this really a good thing? I think in the college space, you'll see it a lot more than in the pro space, because in the college space, you'll like literally see that money go to use on players and facilities and upgrades and things you will actually tangibly be able to see, versus in the where you're like, well, already there, why can't you just, you know, pay for that stuff out of your own pocket? Like, it's just, it feels like it's going to show up in a different space, especially when you start hearing the numbers that are being thrown out, which is universities being able to earn anywhere between $500,000 to $12 million for a singular patch.
Oof. Hey man, I'm excited. And here's the thing though, Caleb, and I understand, sometimes people probably couldn't tell on this show, people who watch this podcast, they can't tell. Sometimes I like to throw my clothes on too. I like to get fresh a little bit. And we use an old school term. But from I really think that I'm a real guy. I like the form to like get real creative with it. Like have a company that's not necessarily, wouldn't throw that type of money, because you might have some tech companies out there. You might have local businesses that are prominent in the community, which I wouldn't mind. Like the varsity, I wouldn't mind seeing a varsity patch on that mug. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be cool, but they have to change the colors. You know what I mean? Get that tech goal on there. Yeah.
You wouldn't take that Coca-Cola money for a red patch on the chest? That wouldn't work.
Woo! I don't know, Finno. If it's 500K, nah, bro. But if it's 12 million, we might have a conversation, Jack. Just saying. But no, I'll be interested to see, and for those of you who watching or listen to this pod, if you got any creative companies that you would like to see on the patch, go ahead and drop one, because my creative one is, the varsity is kind of typical, right around the way, everybody know about the varsity. But what about American Deli? You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Lemon pepper is the official, is about to become the official flavor of the state of Georgia, for wings. You know what I mean? Like,
I saw that.
A company like American Deli, you know what I'm saying? Get yourselves out there. Try something different, because American Deli fell off a little bit. You know what I mean? It ain't as good as it used to be back in the day. So, get yourself back in, a whole bunch of more eyeballs on you, You can help keep South DeKalb Mall open a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying?
I see, Jarvis, I got one that my problem is, because you mentioned the color scheme. That's got to be important. It's got to,
yes.
I think that's a thing too that I've seen kind of with the NBA that I haven't loved, is you need a patch that blends in. And I know the businesses don't want it to blend in. They want it to stand out. They want it to pop, because they want to get their money's worth. But I think in the same respect, blending in and being a part of the jersey also just kind of makes the whole thing go together. And so my problem is, the first business that actually came to mind is one that fits the color scheme, but might give some fans some PTSD. Like, what if you just took the patch, and just Took it right off the hat that I wear sometimes on the show. I
Yeah.
know Jeff really messed it up around here, but Waffle House, a well-loved establishment.
You're not gonna let Jeff Collins take Waffle House.
Okay,
Let's
thank
get
you.
it out there.
Thank
He
you.
can't.
Yeah, that's
No,
where I'm at.
he doesn't have that power. Yeah, we take a Waffle House back. You know,
And that's and I think for Yellow Jackets fans, if they were able to see, hey, we have a good memory with Waffle House now as a jersey patch, and we're making, a few $1 million that can help benefit the program, that can go towards that revenue share, that can go towards, bringing in some new talent, all of those sorts of things. I think that's the element that I definitely would be in favor of. I know it's also, hey, we've talked a lot about stealing business or stealing players back and forth with that Team Up 316. There is a logo that has been put on their field, as the NCAA already allowed logos to be put on the field, that I would wonder, hey, could a Delta patch, fit on the uniform? Because, Atlanta business.
Sure.
I mean, I honestly would not mind an orange patch up on the chest area, and have Arthur Blank, and his past of Home Depot stepping up. So
Okay.
I feel like there are some Atlanta businesses that, could really have their moment to shine. But I also am not going to be surprised at all, Jarvis, if it's a tech company of someone related to the university that we've never heard of. And we're like, oh, what's the, because I see like the Lakers have like BBGO or something like that. Like I've got no idea. But when you see it on the jersey, all of a sudden people are hitting Google and finding out about something new. And so, not that we're haters of the tech bros, just I feel like the recognizable businesses are the areas that you kind of would like to see Georgia Tech be able to go, but in the same respect, those people may not pay as much as the lesser known people that can come from out of nowhere. So I'm with Jarvis. If you've got an idea, drop it in the comments, and we'll talk about it in future episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one last one that I would be remiss if I didn't suggest it, because talking about, and it's right along the lines with the lemon pepper, flavor being the official, not just culturally, but official, flavor of the state of Georgia. Fernando Mendoza, Alberto Mendoza's brother, actually partake. He posted a picture of the wings that he took in at a certain establishment by the name of Magic City.
How did I know you were going to say Magic City?
So, I mean, I'm just saying, certain businesses, it's an opportunity to get yourself out there, even though you in certain areas you're already out there, like literally.
I was just about to say, I feel like the promotion that Magic City gets by word of mouth, and the views seen from inside might be where their marketing budget goes instead of to a jersey patch. Yeah.
I can see where I can smell you on that one.
It would just be interesting to see which direction the Georgia Tech goes. And also that I don't know that a lot of people know that there is, like, you can go 2 patches. So 2 patches up to 4 square inches on these regular season uniforms, apart from the you'll have the jersey brand, so the Under Armour, the Nike, the Adidas, all that sort of stuff is going to be on there as well. And then there's also some discussions that, hey, maybe once we get into postseason events, that those postseason bowls or whatever might have patches associated. So who knows? We might end up with jerseys looking like South American soccer teams that have it all over the place. But hey, if it comes along with money, most people seem to be pretty okay with it, especially if it helps in the, whole winning category.
Absolutely. Yeah. Money means you get good players, and good players ultimately means postseason success. There you go.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Georgia Tech. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts for free. Follow the show on social media, as well as Jarvis at JarvisD90. I'm at ATL Johnson 18. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Georgia Tech with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnGeorgiaTech.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. For Locked On Georgia Tech, y'all have a good one.